Ava Winters stays late in her Soho studio, the air sharp with solder and jasmine tea, and she tells herself tomorrow is the day her life finally locks into place. The launch of Ember Rose is hours away, and the centerpiece design, Starfall, sits inside a fireproof safe like a secret heartbeat. Her phone buzzes with a message from Ethan Cole, her fiancé square root copyright and business partner, asking if she is coming home. Ava smiles, pockets the message, and slips Starfall's final render printouts into a black portfolio case for one last check with the fabricator. She takes the service elevator down, the city humming through the brick walls like a restless engine. Outside, a cold drizzle freckles the sidewalk, and the streetlights paint everything in gold and wet black. Ava decides on a whim to bring Ethan a late-night surprise, because she loves him in that old-fashioned way that believes loyalty is a language. She turns back upstairs, uses her keycard on the studio's main door, and hears laughter before she sees light. The laughter is not hers. It is soft and breathy, and it carries her name like a joke. Ava slows, shoes silent on polished concrete, and she stops at the open door of the meeting room. Ethan is there, arms around Chloe Lane, Ava's best friend since college and her assistant designer, and Chloe's lipstick is smudged against his collar. On the table, under the bright desk lamp, lies Starfall's hand-drawn blueprint, the one Ava locked in the safe before she left. Chloe twirls the page between her fingers like a trophy, and her nails tap the paper in a steady, impatient rhythm. Ava tastes metal, like she has bitten her own tongue, and she feels her pulse slam against the inside of her throat. Ethan looks up first, and the warmth in his face vanishes, as if a switch flips in his skull. Chloe does not flinch at all. "Oh, Ava, you came back," Chloe says, voice sweet as syrup and just as thick. "I was telling Ethan you always do this, you trust people like it is a religion." Ava steps into the room, slow enough to control her hands, and she lets her gaze skim the table, the pages, the open laptop, the USB drive beside Ethan's watch. The laptop screen shows an email draft addressed to a luxury PR list, and the subject line reads, "Starfall by Ethan Cole and Chloe Lane." Ava's stomach drops, then hardens into something cold and usable. "Close the safe," Ava says, and she is surprised by how even her voice sounds. "We already did," Ethan answers, and his eyes are flat, almost relieved. "You were never going to give me credit, Ava, so I am taking it." Chloe leans forward, elbows on the table, and smiles like she has been practicing. "You think talent is enough," Chloe says, "but talent without power is just a pretty sketch. Ethan has connections, I have taste, and you have the brand name. We are simply redistributing assets." Ava lets the word assets hang in the air, and she looks at Ethan as if she is seeing a stranger wearing his face. "You are stealing my work," Ava says. "You are stealing my company." "Your company," Ethan repeats, amused. "Our company, actually. Check the operating agreement. You were so busy designing, you did not read the clauses." Ava feels heat in her eyes, but she refuses to spill it. She reaches into her coat pocket and pulls out her phone, the camera already open because her fingers are faster than her grief. She lifts the phone and takes a photo of Ethan's arms around Chloe, then another of the blueprint, then one more of the laptop screen. Ethan lunges, but Ava steps back, and the flash catches Chloe's smile mid-blink. "Delete that," Ethan snaps, and his voice finally cracks with anger. "No," Ava says, and she keeps her thumb steady. "If you want to take my life, you can do it in daylight." Chloe rises, walks around the table, and stops close enough for Ava to smell her perfume, a copy of Ava's favorite scent. "You will not make it to the launch," Chloe whispers, and there is delight under the threat. "Tomorrow, you will be the pathetic ex-designer who tried to sabotage us." Ava's hand tightens around her phone, and she looks Chloe in the eye until Chloe's smile wobbles. "Try it," Ava says, and the words come out like a blade being drawn. "You want my crown, you can bleed for it." Ethan scoffs, but he does not meet Ava's gaze. Ava turns without another word, because she will not give them the gift of her collapse. She walks out of the meeting room, out of the studio, and into the rain, and only when the door clicks shut behind her does she start to shake. Her hands are still steady enough to back up the photos to the cloud, and she does it on the sidewalk under a flickering awning. Then she calls her fabricator, leaves a voicemail canceling the morning delivery, and her voice stays calm even as her chest feels bruised from the inside. Ava takes 3 deep breaths and tells herself one sentence, over and over, until it becomes a plan. "I do not beg people who betray me." Footsteps hurry behind her, and she hears her own name called, with the false urgency of someone trying to control a story. Ava turns and sees two men in dark jackets moving fast, faces hidden under hoods. One of them reaches for her phone. Ava jerks back, but the sidewalk is slick, and her heel skids. "Give it here," the taller man growls. Wrong night to be stubborn. Ava's heart hammers, and her mind goes razor clear. She swings her portfolio case like a club, hits the man's wrist, and pain shoots up her arm. The second man grabs her elbow, twisting hard enough to make her gasp. Ava fights, but she is smaller, and the rain makes everything slippery and unfair. A black sedan rolls to the curb like it has been summoned by a thought. The back door opens, and warm light spills onto the street. A man steps out, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal coat that looks like it costs more than Ava's rent. He does not shout. He simply says one word, low and final, and the street seems to listen. Enough. The two men freeze, not because they respect the word, but because they recognize the voice behind it. Another man appears from the driver's side, sharp in a suit despite the weather, and he moves with practiced speed. He pries the hooded man's hand from Ava's arm and positions himself between her and the threat without asking permission. Ava stares at him, breath ragged, and then at the tall man, whose gaze lands on her like a steadying weight. "Ms. Winters," the tall man says, and he speaks her name as if he has said it before in private. "Get in the car." Ava hesitates for half a beat, because strangers are dangerous and so is staying. The taller hooded man takes that half beat as an opening and lunges again. The suited man catches him, twists his arm, and slams him against the sedan with a precise, brutal economy. Ava's pulse spikes. The tall man does not flinch. He holds Ava's gaze, and something in his expression is not pity, but certainty. Ava gets in the car. The interior smells like leather and cedar, and the noise of the rain becomes a muted hush. Ava presses her palms to her knees to stop the tremor in her fingers. The suited man slides into the front passenger seat and speaks into a discreet earpiece, voice clipped and controlled. The tall man sits across from Ava, one arm resting on the seat back, posture relaxed in a way that reads as power. His face is clean-shaven, his eyes dark, and his expression is unreadable except for the faint tension at the corner of his mouth. Ava knows that face from magazines and industry panels. Julian Foster, owner of Foster Fine, the jewelry empire that buys entire collections the way other people buy coffee. The kind of man investors call when they want reassurance, and rivals call when they want to measure their fear. Ava swallows. "Why are you here?" she asks, and she hates that her voice is hoarse. "Because Ethan Cole is sloppy," Julian says, and his tone makes it sound like a fact, not an opinion. "And because you are in danger." Ava lifts her phone. "Is this about those photos?" she asks. "Did he send you something?" Julian's gaze flicks to the phone, then back to her face. "He sent signals," Julian says. "I read signals for a living." Ava tries to steady her breathing, tries to keep her mind on math instead of betrayal. "What do you want?" she asks. Julian leans forward, and the cabin light catches the fine texture of his cufflinks, small stars set in platinum. "I want you to win tomorrow," he says. "I want Starfall registered under your name, I want Ember Rose protected, and I want Ethan Cole and Chloe Lane removed from your oxygen." Ava laughs once, sharp and disbelieving. "That is a lot of wanting from someone you do not know," she says. Julian's mouth curves, not quite a smile. "I know your work," he says. "I have watched you fight for it in rooms that did not deserve you." Ava's throat tightens. She remembers the first time she pitched a concept to a major retailer, and a man twice her age told her she should put her boyfriend on the email thread to sound more credible. She remembers swallowing anger like broken glass and still smiling to close the deal. Julian studies her, and the silence between them feels deliberate. "You can help me," Ava says finally, "but nothing is free." "Correct," Julian says, and his eyes hold hers without blinking. "You partner with Foster Fine. Ember Rose becomes a house label under my distribution. You keep creative control, and you get my legal team, my security, and my market weight." Ava's mind races. A partnership with Foster Fine is a ladder made of gold, but gold always has a price. "And what do you get?" Ava asks. Julian answers without hesitation. "A designer who will change the market," he says. "And a chance to correct an injustice I have been watching too long." Ava hears something beneath the words, something personal, but she does not have the luxury of curiosity. She looks out the window, sees the wet streets of Manhattan streaking past like a blurred film, and she thinks of Ethan's grin, Chloe's perfume, the email draft, the stolen blueprint. Ava turns back to Julian. "Draw the contract," she says. "But I want clauses. Creative ownership stays with me." My name stays on my work. Any public statement tomorrow is mine to approve. Julian's eyes flash with approval. Agreed, he says. My counsel will send terms within the hour. The suited man in front glances back. Ms. Winters, I am Miles Quinn, he says. I handle Mr. Foster's operations. If you need anything tonight, you ask me. Ava nods, because she does not trust her voice. Julian reaches to the side compartment and takes out a paper cup of coffee, still steaming, as if he planned for her hunger before she admitted it. He offers it to her without flourish. Ava takes it, fingers brushing his, and the contact is brief but grounding. She sips, and the warmth spreads through her chest like a decision. Where are we going, she asks. To a place Ethan cannot reach, Julian says. And to a printer, because your evidence will not live only on a cloud that can be hacked. Ava exhales slowly. For the first time since she opened that meeting room door, she feels something other than shock. She feels momentum. The sedan turns onto a quieter street. Miles speaks into his phone again, arranging meetings in clipped phrases that sound like commands. Ava watches Julian's profile, the way his jaw tightens when he thinks, and she wonders how long he has been watching her life. Her phone pings with a notification. An email arrives from Ethan, subject line, "We need to talk." Ava deletes it without opening. She opens a new message, types one sentence, and sends it to her own team group chat. Tomorrow morning, come early, and bring every contract you have ever signed with Ethan Cole. Her hands stop shaking. At dawn, Manhattan looks clean only because the sun is too tired to expose the dirt. Ava stands in Foster Fine's conference room, a glass box high above Fifth Avenue, and signs documents with a pen that feels heavier than it should. Julian's legal counsel explains the emergency filings, the intellectual property protections, and the injunction requests in fast, precise language. Ava listens, asks sharp questions, and feels her anger turn into a blueprint of its own. By 9, the venue is alive. The launch event takes place at a converted gallery space in Chelsea, white walls and spotlight rigs, and a runway lined with journalists. Ember Rose banners hang from steel beams, and Ava's designs gleam in display cases like captured fire. Ava arrives through a side entrance with Julian at her side, Miles a step behind, and 2 security professionals, who do not advertise themselves. She keeps her chin lifted, because humiliation is a costume she refuses to wear. Backstage, she hears Ethan's voice on the main stage, smooth and practiced. "We are honored to introduce Starfall," Ethan says, and his laugh rings out. A piece inspired by the night sky, designed with love and collaboration. Ava's nails dig into her palm. She peeks through the curtain. Ethan stands under the lights in a tailored suit, and Chloe stands beside him in a dress that mirrors Ava's earlier sketch, as if she is trying to step into Ava's silhouette. Chloe's hand rests possessively on the podium. Ava feels Julian shift beside her. "Ready?" he asks, low. "I was born ready," Ava answers, and she surprises herself with the truth of it. They step out together. A ripple moves through the crowd as cameras turn. Ethan's smile falters, then he recovers with theatrical charm. "Ava," he says into the microphone, as if they are old friends. "You made it. I was worried you were sick." Ava walks forward, takes the second microphone from an assistant, and faces the audience. Julian stops half a pace behind her, not blocking her light, simply making it impossible for anyone to shove her out of it. "Good morning," Ava says. "Before anyone tries to sell you a lie, I am here to introduce a fact." The room quiets. Ethan's eyes narrow. Chloe's smile tightens. Julian lifts his hand toward the stage manager, who nods and signals the AV booth. "Foster Fine has signed an exclusive partnership with Ember Rose," Julian says, voice carrying without a microphone, because he knows how to command rooms. "All original designs presented today belong to Ava Winters, and we have already filed the appropriate documentation with the United States Patent and Trademark Office." A collective gasp sweeps the audience, followed by the rapid clicks of phones taking photos. Ethan laughs, too loud. "That is ridiculous," he says. "Ava, you are emotional, and you are being manipulated." Ava lifts her phone and plugs it into the AV switcher, with a calm that feels like revenge in slow motion. "No," she says. "I am being documented." The main screen behind them flickers, then fills with footage. Security camera video shows Ethan and Chloe in the meeting room, bent over Starfall's blueprints, bodies pressed together, hands passing the USB drive. The timestamp is clear. The next slide shows Ethan's email draft with the subject line and the recipient list. Then a chat log appears, Chloe texting Ethan, calling Ava naive, planning the exact moment to claim Starfall on stage. The crowd erupts, reporters shouting questions, flashes strobing across the white walls. Chloe's face drains of color. Ethan reaches for the microphone again, but his hands shake, and the audience can see it. "This is out of context," Ethan says. "She is trying to ruin my reputation." Ava turns to him, voice calm enough to cut. "You ruined your own reputation when you stole from me," she says. "I am simply showing people what you did." Chloe lunges toward Ava, anger breaking through the facade. "You cannot do this," Chloe hisses, but she is too close to the microphones, and the whole room hears her venom. Ava takes one step back, letting security slide in smoothly, and she keeps her gaze on Chloe. "I can," Ava says. "And I am." A reporter shouts a question about Starfall's authorship. Ava answers without missing a beat. "I designed Starfall from scratch," she says. "I have dated sketches, vendor emails, and fabrication notes. Foster Fine is backing my claim, and my counsel will be pursuing civil and criminal remedies for theft and fraud." Ethan's mouth opens, then closes, as if his script has been ripped away. Chloe looks around, desperate for sympathy, but the faces in the crowd are sharp with judgment. Ava lifts her chin higher. "If you work in design," she says to the room, "know this. Copying is easy. Creating costs. I pay that cost, and I will not let anyone take my bill and wear it like jewelry." The audience breaks into applause, scattered at first, then swelling, because people love a public downfall when it is earned. Julian's gaze stays on Ava, steady and almost proud. Ethan grabs Chloe's arm and tries to drag her off the stage, but photographers crowd in, and the exit turns into a gauntlet of shame. Ava watches them go, and she does not feel relief. She feels the opening of a war. 2 hours later, Ava stands in Ember Rose's studio with her team gathered around the long work table. The designers look stunned, then exhilarated, then afraid, emotions flickering like solder sparks. Ava places a stack of printed contracts on the table and taps the top page. She speaks with a clarity that surprises even her. "Ethan Cole is no longer welcome here," she says. "If he shows up, you call me, and you call security. Today, we make this place ours again." A senior jeweler, Rita, raises a cautious hand. "He is on the bank account," Rita says. "He has access to payroll." Ava nods, because she has already anticipated the damage. "Miles," Ava says, and Miles steps forward, handing over a folder. Miles's calm is contagious. "We froze the accounts this morning," Miles says. "Temporary restraining order is in process. He cannot move funds without triggering alerts." Ava looks at her staff. "No one loses a paycheck," she says. "Not because I am kind, but because I am smart. A scared team cannot build a brand." The room relaxes, shoulders dropping in visible relief. Rita exhales hard. "Thank you," she says. Ava turns the folder pages. There are bank statements highlighted in yellow, showing transfers Ethan made to an account that does not belong to the studio. There are email threads with a competing brand's buyer, implying Ethan offered inside information for a promised job. There is a screenshot of Chloe sending confidential design photos to a contact labeled V. Ava's jaw tightens. "He has been siphoning money," Ava says, and she keeps her tone controlled. "And Chloe has been leaking our work." Murmurs rise. Ava holds up her hand. "I am not here to punish you for believing in them," she says. "I am here to protect you from becoming collateral." She takes a breath and chooses the next words carefully. "If you are loyal to Ember Rose, you are safe," she says. "If you are loyal to Ethan, you can leave today, and I will not fight you for it." Silence. Then one of the younger designers, June, stands. "He told us you were unstable," June says, cheeks red with shame. "He said you would burn everything down if you did not get your way." Ava nods, because she recognizes the tactic. "People who steal call their victims unstable," she says. "It makes the theft sound reasonable." Rita slams her palm on the table, hard enough to rattle gemstone trays. "I saw Chloe tracing your sketches last month," Rita says. "I thought she was learning. I feel stupid." Ava meets Rita's eyes. "Do not," Ava says. "They used love and friendship as disguises. You trusted because you are decent, not because you are weak." The team shifts, something solidifying among them. Ava assigns tasks, inventory checks, password resets, and security updates, and the work gives everyone a place to put their fear. By evening, Ethan arrives anyway. He storms into the studio, face tight with rage, carrying a folder like a weapon. "Ava," he shouts. "You cannot lock me out of my own company." Ava stands by the work table, hands resting on the wood like she is anchoring herself to reality. Julian is not there, but his security team is, and Miles is on speakerphone. "This is not your company," Ava says. "And you know it." Ethan thrusts papers toward her. "I have the agreement," he snaps. "You signed it. 51% control. If you fail to meet funding milestones. You missed your milestone because you pulled the fabricator this morning." Ava takes the papers, scans them, and feels a flash of fury at her past self. The clause is real, hidden in dense language under a schedule of deliverables. Ethan's smile is thin. "You are finished," he says. "Sign over the brand, and I might let you keep a consulting title." Ava sets the papers down. "You forged half these attachments," she says. "And even if you did not, a contract signed under fraud does not stand." Ethan laughs. "Prove it," he says. Ava turns her phone toward him and taps play. A recorded call fills the studio, Ethan's voice clear, telling Chloe to doctor invoices to make Ava look irresponsible. Ethan's face goes gray. Ava watches him, then speaks into the quiet. "That is fraud," she says. "And this is New York. People go to prison for less when the wrong person is angry." Ethan's eyes flick to the security guard at the door, then back to Ava. "You think Foster can save you," Ethan says, and his voice shakes. "He is using you, Ava. Men like him do not help women like you for free." Ava's mouth tightens. "Maybe," she says. "But right now, he is helping, and you are stealing. So tell me which one makes you the villain." Ethan steps closer, voice dropping. "You will regret humiliating me," he says. "I will take everything you love." Ava does not step back. "You already tried," she says. "You failed." Security escorts Ethan out. The door closes, and the studio breathes again. Ava's knees tremble, but she stays standing until everyone returns to work, because leadership is sometimes a performance you learn to believe in. Later, when the lights are off and the tools are put away, Ava sits alone at her desk and lets herself feel the quiet. Her phone rings. Julian's name fills the screen. Ava answers, voice softer than she intends. "Are you safe?" Julian asks. "For now," Ava says. There is a pause, and she can hear the faint sound of traffic on his end. "I am sorry," Julian says, and his apology is not for what he did, but for what she endured. Ava blinks hard. "Do not be sorry," she says. "Be useful." Julian chuckles, low, almost relieved. "I can do that," he says. "Tomorrow, we file for permanent control transfer. Tonight, you sleep somewhere secure." Ava wants to say she does not need protection. Then she remembers the hooded men in the rain. "Fine," she says. "But I am not hiding. I am building." "Good," Julian says. "Build. I will make sure no one burns your scaffolding." 3 days pass in a blur of attorneys, interviews, and deadlines that feel like knives. The press calls Ava ruthless, brilliant, cold, and she lets them, because labels are cheaper than truth. Ember Rose sales spike after the launch footage goes viral, and influencers post videos praising Ava's spine as much as her designs. Ethan responds with a lawsuit claiming defamation and breach of partnership. Chloe posts tearful stories online, calling Ava abusive and jealous, and then deletes them when her own messages leak. Ava does not leak them. Miles does, with the efficiency of a man who knows how to end a narrative cleanly. Ava meets Julian in his office after a board call, and she sees the fatigue at the edges of his composure. He pours her water, not wine, as if he respects the way she keeps her mind sharp. "How long have you been watching me?" Ava asks, because the question has become a stone in her shoe. Julian does not pretend confusion. "Since your first student showcase," he says. "You wore a thrift blazer and still made the room look expensive." Ava frowns. "That was 8 years ago," she says. "I remember," Julian says. Ava studies him. Powerful men are usually loud about their power. Julian is quiet, which makes him more dangerous. "Why?" Ava asks, and she means, "Why me?" Julian's gaze drops to his desk, where a small prototype ring sits on a velvet pad, a piece he is tweaking for a winter collection. "Because you create with fire," he says. "And because I know what it looks like when people circle that fire only to steal heat." Ava's throat tightens again. She wants to believe him, but belief has been expensive lately. "If this is about ownership," Ava says, "say it now. I will not be owned." Julian looks up, and something raw flickers in his eyes. "I do not want to own you," he says. "I want to stand beside you if you let me." Ava's pulse stutters. She looks away, because intimacy feels like stepping onto thin ice. Her phone buzzes with a new message from an unknown number. It is a photo of her studio door, taken from across the street. Under it is one line. "We know where you work." Ava's skin goes cold. Julian sees her face change and reaches for her phone without asking. He reads the message, jaw tightening. "Miles," he says into the intercom, voice clipped. Move security to Ember Rose, now. Trace that number. Ava stands too fast, chair scraping. They are escalating, she says. They are desperate, Julian says. That makes them stupid, and stupid is dangerous. Ava forces herself to breathe. I will not stop, she says, and she hates the tremor in her voice. You will not stop, Julian agrees. But you will not do it alone. That night, Ava leaves the studio with 2 guards at Rita's insistence, her coat collar up against the wind. The street is busy, people laughing outside a bar, taxis honking, life indifferent to her private war. Ava walks toward the waiting car, but something feels off. The guard on her left glances down at his phone, just for a second. Ava's instincts scream. A van door slides open behind her, and a hand clamps over her mouth, yanking her backward. Ava bites hard, tastes blood and kicks, but the grip is iron. Her phone slips from her pocket and skitters across the pavement. She hears a familiar voice, tight with panic. Ava. Julian's voice. He is there, faster than logic, moving through the crowd like a blade through cloth. One of the guards is on the ground, stunned. The other is grappling with a man in a hoodie. Julian reaches Ava, grabs the attacker by the wrist, and wrenches until bones crack with a sickening pop. The attacker screams. Ava coughs, air flooding back into her lungs. Julian pulls her behind him, body a shield, and his hand finds the back of her head, steadying her. Get her in the car, he orders, voice like thunder wrapped in control. Miles appears, jaw tight, eyes scanning, as security converges. The van screeches away, tires spraying dirty water, and the crowd erupts in shocked shouts. Ava shakes violently now that adrenaline has room to move. Julian gets her into the car, shuts the door, and climbs in beside her, breathing hard. His knuckles are scraped, a thin line of blood running down his thumb. Ava stares at it, then at his face. You followed me, she says, voice breaking. I knew they would try, Julian says. I am not losing you to their stupidity. Ava swallows, and her fear turns to anger, then to something softer, more frightening. Why does it matter so much, she whispers. Julian looks at her like he has been holding his breath for years. Because I have wanted you for a long time, he says. And because your fire is the only thing in this city that feels honest. Ava's eyes sting. She hates that her body wants comfort from someone else when she has just learned how to comfort herself. We have a contract, she says, grasping for structure. Julian's mouth tightens. We have a partnership, he corrects. The rest is your choice. Ava exhales shakily. Then help me finish them, she says. Not for revenge. For closure. I will, Julian says. And then I will ask you again when you are not bleeding inside. The next morning, Miles delivers a thick folder to Ava's temporary apartment, a penthouse Julian insists is simply safer. Inside are police reports, surveillance stills, and a traced payment chain linking the attempted abduction to an account Ethan controls. Ava reads every page, hands steady, heart cold. She meets Julian and the attorneys in a conference room, and she does not raise her voice once. She signs the complaint for attempted kidnapping, business fraud, and theft of trade secrets. Julian watches her pen move, and he looks both proud and furious, as if he wants to carry her rage so she does not have to. Ethan is arrested at noon outside a courthouse, cameras catching his stunned face as officers read his rights. Chloe tries to flee, but she is stopped at the airport when a warrant appears in the system. The story explodes across every business outlet by nightfall. Ava's name is no longer followed by betrayed. It is followed by relentless. In the days after the arrests, Ethan's lawyers scramble, trying to frame Ava as a jilted fiancé square root copyright staging a corporate coup. Ava sits through depositions with her back straight and her voice measured, answering every question with receipts instead of rage. She learns how easily men like Ethan weaponize tone, and she refuses to give him ammunition. Miles brings her a timeline board, every transfer, every edited invoice, every message Chloe sent, pinned like insects under glass. Ava adds her own notes in red ink, not because she enjoys the cruelty, but because she enjoys clarity. Julian insists she eats, and he does it without romance, sliding takeout boxes across a table while reading briefs like a man at war. On the third night, Ava catches him rubbing a scar on his wrist, a thin white line that looks older than his empire. Who did that, she asks, and she regrets the softness in her voice as soon as it leaves her mouth. Julian pauses, eyes fixed on the scar, as if it belongs to someone else. My father, he says, and the words are flat, like a floor he does not want to step on. Ava goes still. She has read business articles about Julian's rise, the prodigy who rebuilt a legacy brand, the cold strategist who never loses. None of them mention that scars can be inheritance too. I am sorry, Ava says, and she means it with her whole body. Julian looks up, and for a moment he looks younger, almost tired. Do not be sorry for what you did not cause, he says. Just do not confuse my calm for a lack of fire. Ava nods, because she recognizes that kind of fire, the kind that burns inward until it learns how to aim. The next morning, Chloe's attorney requests a private mediation session, claiming Chloe wants to make amends. Ava agrees only because she wants to hear the lies in person, to make sure she is never surprised again. The meeting takes place in a neutral law office, with beige walls that smell like disinfectant and old coffee. Chloe arrives, wearing a modest blouse, and an expression of practiced remorse, her hair pulled back to look innocent. Ava, Chloe says softly, I was scared. Ethan said you would destroy me if I did not help him. Ava watches Chloe's hands, the way her fingers twist the edge of a tissue into a rope. You were not scared when you kissed him in my studio, Ava says. You were thrilled. Chloe's eyes flash, then fill with tears on command. You always thought you were better than me, Chloe whispers. You never saw me. Ava feels the old guilt twitch in her chest, the reflex to comfort, to fix, to apologize for existing too brightly. Then she remembers Starfall on the table, the email draft, the smugness in Chloe's voice, and the guilt evaporates. I saw you, Ava says. I just did not realize you were looking for a place to put a knife. Chloe's face hardens, the mask slipping. You have him now, Chloe snaps, nodding toward Julian's name on the legal papers. You have everything. Why are you still punishing me? Ava leans forward, voice low enough that Chloe has to listen. This is not punishment, Ava says. This is consequence. Learn the difference. Chloe flinches as if struck, and Ava is not proud of it, but she is not sorry either. After the mediation collapses, Chloe goes back to bargaining through attorneys, and Ava goes back to building through work. She sketches a new line at midnight, sharp angles softened by hidden curves, pieces that look like roses made of embers and steel. Julian watches her draw, silent, then slides a small notebook toward her. Inside are his own early sketches, raw and imperfect, proof that he once had to learn too. You keep these, he says. When you doubt yourself, remember that even empires start as pencil marks. Ava touches the page, and her fingers shake for a different reason now. One afternoon, she and Julian attend a private showing for buyers, and a veteran executive tries to credit Julian for Ava's designs. Mr. Foster has a brilliant eye, the executive says, smiling at Julian. He always picks the right woman to polish. Ava's stomach twists. Before she can speak, Julian's voice cuts in, calm and lethal. I do not polish her, Julian says. I protect the room so she can shine. If you cannot respect that, you do not belong in the room. The executive stammers an apology, and Ava feels something inside her uncoil, a knot she did not know she carried. That night, she sits on the penthouse balcony, with a blanket around her shoulders, watching taxis trail light below. Julian steps out beside her, 2 mugs of tea in his hands, and for once he does not talk business. Do you miss who you were before him, he asks, meaning Ethan, meaning the version of Ava who trusted easily. Ava thinks for a long moment. I miss the ease, she admits, but I do not miss the blindness. Julian nods, and the silence between them feels like a promise that does not need to be spoken yet. When the court date finally arrives, Ava walks in with her chin lifted, her designs on her ears like armor, and Julian at her side like a quiet storm. She does not smile for the cameras. She does not have to. Her victory is already in motion, and she can feel it in the way the air parts when she walks. Weeks later, in a courtroom that smells like polished wood and old tension, Ava sits behind her counsel and watches Ethan avoid her eyes. Chloe sits 2 rows back, mascara smudged, no longer glamorous, just small and furious. When the judge reads the plea terms, Ethan finally looks at Ava. You did not have to destroy me, he says, voice hoarse. Ava does not flinch. You destroyed yourself, she answers, and her words land with the calm of a closing door. Ethan is led away. Chloe follows, shoulders shaking, her whisper of Ava's name swallowed by the room. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarm. Julian takes Ava's hand, a simple gesture, but the cameras catch it, and the world immediately writes a romance into their story. Ava does not correct them. Let them speculate, she thinks. Speculation is harmless compared to theft. Spring arrives in New York with impatient sunlight and sidewalks that smell like coffee and warm stone. Ember Rose's first co-branded collection with Foster Fine launches as a limited run, and it sells out in 14 minutes. Ava stands in the showroom, watching customers lean close to the glass as if the pieces are alive. Starfall, now properly credited, is displayed in the center, its diamonds arranged to look like a meteor shower frozen mid-fall. Ava feels a swell of pride that is clean, not hungry. She turns and finds Julian watching her, his eyes softer than the boardroom versions of him. "You did it," he says. "We did it," Ava corrects, and the words surprise her with how easily they fit. Julian's mouth curves, and for once it is an actual smile. That night, he invites her to the rooftop garden of his building. The city stretches below them, a field of lights, and the wind smells like rain without the threat. A table is set with takeout from Ava's favorite late-night diner, not champagne, because Julian has been paying attention. Ava laughs, the sound rusty from disuse, and she sits across from him under strings of warm bulbs. "I do not know how to be this," she admits, gesturing between them. "I know how to fight. I know how to build. I do not know how to trust." Julian leans forward, elbows on the table, gaze steady. "Trust is not a switch," he says. "It is a series of choices. You can start small." Ava studies him. She thinks of him showing up in the rain. She thinks of his legal team moving like a storm on her behalf. She thinks of him asking permission with his eyes even when he could take what he wants by force. Ava nods once. "Small," she agrees. Julian reaches into his coat pocket and pulls out a ring box. Ava's heart jolts, and her first instinct is panic. Julian does not open it. He sets it on the table between them, like an offering, not a trap. "I am not proposing to solve you," he says. "I am not buying a happy ending. I am asking if you want to build one with me, at your pace, in your way." Ava's throat tightens. She reaches for the box, then stops, fingers hovering. "What if I am still angry?" she asks. "Then be angry," Julian says. "I do not need you soft to love you." Ava laughs again, but this time the sound cracks with emotion. She opens the box. Inside is a ring he designed himself, a rose-shaped setting holding a stone that shifts between deep ember red and clear light depending on the angle. Ava's breath catches. "It is impossible," she whispers. "So are you," Julian says. Ava closes her eyes for a second, letting the city noise fade. When she opens them, she meets his gaze. "Yes," she says, "but no promises about being easy." Julian's smile is slow, real, and unguarded. "Good," he says. "Easy is boring." He slides the ring onto her finger with careful hands. Ava feels the cool metal settle, then warm, as if it is learning her pulse. She stands, pulls Julian up by his tie, and kisses him, because some choices are small and some are decisive. Below them, the city keeps moving, indifferent and bright. Ava breaks the kiss and rests her forehead against his. "Ember Rose is not just a brand anymore," she says. "It is a warning." Julian's eyes gleam. "To anyone who tries to steal your fire," he says. Ava smiles, and this time the smile is hers alone. "Let them try," she says. "We are the blaze."
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.